series, so we're going to begin. It's being recorded for those of you that, because some people couldn't attend around the university and they really want to hear it. So Eric started the recording. So welcome to the Dean's Lecture Series. This is the first one for this academic year, and delighted to have Jeff Westphal and Freddie Reisman present on the new Creativity Center. I was supposed to read this little paragraph and I just didn't. So they're going to present on the new Freddie Reisman Center for Translational Research and Creativity and Motivation. The new center aims to put the latest research in creativity and motivation into the hands of stakeholders in education and corporate settings and help them create activities to help their students and employees thrive. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Freddie. She's going to introduce herself, and then Jeff will introduce himself, and then they'll spend the hour talking about the Creativity Center. So Freddie.
Hey, hi, everybody. So good to see you all. Well, as many of you know, I hate introducing myself, so I'll just be quick. I am the founder of the School of Education. And actually in 1984, we started the Teacher Ed program, which then became a division, which eventually became a freestanding school in 1997, 24 years ago. I am just thrilled with this new center due to the vision and wonderful support of Jeff. And Jeff, now I turn it over to you to introduce yourself, and then we'll go to screen one.
Thank you, Freddie. Hello, everyone. I'm Jeff Westphal, and Freddie is characteristically trying to give me the credit, but it's truly my pleasure and honor to have met Freddie some 25 or 30 years ago when I was a young parent on fire about the idea that the children want to learn and that school can repress that desire. Short story, we pursued a self-directed education experience. Unschooling might be the term for it, in a community with our 3 children, now all college graduates and adults, all big believers in what we did. And I led my company on a premise of tapping and creating a safe space for the intrinsic motivation of everyone involved, and a collaborative ethos as a culture. And we had some, rather special outcomes, and it put me in a position to try to, energize Freddie's vision for a transformation in the way we educate. And that's ultimately the purpose of the center. So in any event, too many words, but truly an honor to be here with Freddie and share these ideas with you.
Thank you, Jeff. Well, regarding the first slide, just as in the remarkable progress of our space program, the FRC, as we're calling our center for short, is taking a giant step in erasing the disconnect between educationally related research and access to the end user, namely teachers, corporate trainers, talent managers. Next slide, Larry. We're focusing mainly on creativity and motivation, and just so we're all on the same page, because there are 100 definitions of creativity, we'll go with not 2 things: that something to be creative has to be novel and original and has to be relevant and useful. Slide. Our definition of motivation is that motivation causes you to act. Slide. Okay, why the focus on creativity and motivation? Slide. Well, teachers' perceptions of creative students are really off base. Teachers think that their creative students agree with them, do not question their statements, are not behavior problems, they smile at them. Slide. But teachers often do not recognize the creative strengths of their students. And actually, those creative students, teachers believe, are nonconformist, disruptive, troublemakers. Slide. When teachers become aware of their own creative strengths, they then can better recognize their creative students. And when they do this, it leads to a higher quality of learning. Slides. Jeff, this is yours.
Thanks, Freddie. We could just go back over Freddie's last 3 slides and insert the words business leader or manager instead of teacher, and apply how the teacher and the student interact with what happens in the workplace. The business leader tends to see the people who agree with them as getting it and as focused on performance and focused on positive outcomes and all the rest. And they tend to see the individual who's impertinent enough to say, wait a second, what about so-and-so as, backing up the train, slowing down the process, et cetera. And so you wonder why, we develop groupthink and how organizations wind up making, disastrous decisions because there is no ethos of honoring creative perspectives and divergent ideas on the part of the team. I think that this behavior from my 30 years of business leadership and my 20 plus years in education as a parent and as a philanthropist and as a board member, I think that these habits are not natural and are learned in school because of the same reasons Freddie just mentioned. So what's occurring in business is a realization slowly that just getting more efficient, just executing with more predictability isn't going to create any material new improvement in products, services, or an environment where talent wants to be a part of the equation. And that there's a rising value for creativity, but not much in the way of how to actually manifest or create or support an organization that honors creativity. And so I think that the need in the business world for translational studies that can help business leaders apply what the research has demonstrated can have enormous value and a real human value. It's not about businesses making more money. It's about businesses building safer cars that don't harm the environment. Those kinds of innovations are what we need. And creativity and the ability to nourish creativity in the workplace is central to that opportunity. Slide. Freddie?
Okay, well, this is your slide, Jeff.
Oh, I see it as our slide, so I'll share it with you. I just hinted at better solutions in business that impact human flourishing. The cars we drive, the food we eat, the way everything is delivered, the buildings we're in, as we all have grown to realize, all of these man-made business products can be and need to be effectively redesigned to nourish and sustain the planet we all rely upon and give back to our social well-being. That's not happening in the great majority of mainstream business, in large part due to the prevailing worldview that we're just here to execute what the boss says. Kind of like we're just here to get the grades the teacher wants us to get. And so I see profound transformational benefit to humanity of shifting the educational paradigm from one of demonstrate knowledge to one of nurturing creativity.
Amen. Slide.
You can see that Freddie and I sit in the same pew.
Right, right. Okay, well, the purpose of the center is really taking from the model in medicine of bench to bedside, and our motto is lab to learner, where we want to erase the disconnect between the wonderful research that resides in journals or reports of funding. We want to move that to being accessed by teachers and by corporate trainers and talent managers so that they can then improve the lives of the people with whom they work, their students and employees with whom they work. So we want to erase that disconnect. Slide. The FRC will provide the following services. We will develop lesson plans, which will be the bridge between the research on creativity and motivation to teachers implementing these ideas, this research via lesson plans. But the difference between our model and the medical model is really one way. What happens in the medical research labs is then, like for example, cancer, is then put forth to the physicians to apply to their patients. And it's a one-way street. Ours is going to be two-way because we want to involve the end users. We want the teachers' feedback to tell us, are these lesson plans working? How do we have to modify them? How will they modify them? And also, they will identify relevant research, such as learner-centered education, which sometimes it's called unschooling, or self-determination theory, which is an important new theory in motivation. And so the feedback from the teachers is very important, as well as once we get into working with the corporate folk, and we will bring them on as associates of the center if they wish. I'd like to mention the advisory board. It's just so thrilling. We have an advisory board of 10 people from around the world and the US. Chris Wilson is Technology Enhanced Learning Manager and Academic Lead of the Research Inspired Teacher Experience Program in Birmingham, England. James Kaufman is Professor of Ed Psych. And by the way, these people are gurus in the creativity. James Kaufman is at the University of Connecticut. Vlad Glavenou is Associate Professor and Head of the Department of Psychology and Counseling in Webster University, Geneva, Switzerland. Ron Beccato is the Pinnacle West Presidential Chair and Professor of Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College and Arizona State University in Tempe, Arizona. Carrie Saltner is the Chief Learning Officer at the National Constitution Center here in Philadelphia. Pete Ophoven is Strategic IT Consultant, Adjunct Faculty in Bellevue College, and recent Creativity CRTV graduate. Bonnie Cramen is University of Georgia Emerita Professor and is former Director of the Torrance Center for Creativity and Talent Development at UGA in Athens, Georgia. Kristen Betts, Clinical Professor and MBL Courses Lead, School of Education, Drexel University. Kung-Hee Kim is Professor of Educational Psychology, William and Mary Graduate School of Education. And James Ogilvie is Professor of Business at Middlesex University, United Kingdom. Also is the chair of KIE, which stands for Knowledge, Innovation, and Enterprise. And we're having that conference July 28th in 2022 in Madrid, Spain, as well as virtually. Slide. you are all invited to participate in the FRC. You can do this in several ways. You can help us identify research that needs to be translated to the end user educators and corporate trainers. You can submit your own relevant research that needs to be translated to the end users. You can join us in writing lesson plans based upon the translated research that will bridge from the lab to the teachers, and just any other idea that you come up with. Also, Larry is putting on the chat a 2-page overview of the center, which goes into a lot more detail than we have. Slide. I thank you. The principles of the FRC are as follows. And Jeff and I will now be very happy to take questions or comments. As you can see, I'm kind of parsimonious in my presentation. I'm not very elaborative. But we welcome any comments. Hi.
Freddie, it's Craig. Hi.
Hi.
I just wanted to just compliment the team on developing this. It's a very powerful solution to problems that exist across these spaces, education and business spaces. Having spent lots of time in both of those spaces, I see so much value, whether, for example, if I was back at Goddard, working with the FRC to help us solve a whole range of problems, and certainly in the school districts where I've supported schools, it's just across the board. So I'm really excited to support you in this effort.
And I want to mention that Craig will be the head of evaluation for the FRC. It's not enough just to put the research in the hands of teachers unless we see how it affects the students and the employees. Then what's the use? Oh yes, we want to see teacher behavior change. We want to help teachers to become more aware of the importance of creativity and motivation and understanding creative characteristics of their students so that they can nurture them rather than punish them. And so it's really a very exciting opportunity to develop a proper evaluation scheme that really gets at the heart of the matter, the kids and the employees. Yes, Bill, you don't have to raise your hand. You can just talk. Are you on mute, Bill? You're on mute. Can't hear you.
See that MaryJo has her hand up as well. So I'll defer to her and then please come back to me.
Okay.
Gotta unmute. Yeah, this is very exciting, Freddie, because I know how much of your life has been dedicated to creativity. I was wondering, I saw your people on the board and I didn't really look at them that closely, but what efforts are you making to include the art museums in the city into the Creativity Center? Have you reached out to like Barbara Bassett at PMA or some of the educators at the Barnes? It seems that you have a lot of research, like the scientific end of research in this area, but I don't know if you have any of those people in mind for your board or as consultants, or if you have reached out to them.
Well, this is exactly the kind of feedback and input that we need, MaryJo. And if offline, if you'll give me some more information and leads, that's a great idea.
Mm-hmm. Will
Dr.
do.
So I'll follow up. Thanks, Mary Jo. Good to see you. The my question, Freddie, was this, is that I know with Jeff has emphasized the importance of this to business, and you seem to be emphasizing the importance of this in schools. And that, to me, looks like a lifelong kind of interest and relevance of creativity and innovation and motivation. So I'm wondering, will the center be addressing adult learners as well as, let's say, K through 12 or K through 20? Will it be for, training, business education, and so forth?
Well, especially the corporate side of it will be dealing with adults.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank
I
you. And by the way, congratulations on the culmination of a lifetime of work here. I know this culmination doesn't mean end in this case, it means a new beginning, but it's great to have this center as an action arm.
So I received a private chat regarding about how people can approach the advisory board about collaboration or approach the FRC about their creative research. And so one of the processes that we're developing is we're having an application form, or we have an application form in draft for teachers who want to be involved, so that we have can bring them on as associates, but so that we know who we're working with, and then we have a contact information for meetings and smaller gatherings. We thanks to the funding, we have a dedicated space here within the School of Education for people who want to meet on campus and are able to meet on campus as well. That's hooked up virtually, so we can meet off campus too, in small groups. But there'll be an application process, not only for teachers to participate. We're going to have an exchange through Blackboard that will be connected to the website, which is almost completed, for putting the application forward, but to share the information and the research and the lesson plans, and then ship them out to the people who want to participate and try them out, and then receive the feedback back and forth, so that people are trying other people's work. But we also want to go beyond teachers. We want to work with university faculty. And so our plans, and we're working closely with the Close School of Entrepreneurship, because again, we're very tightly related. But we want to get into engineering and bioengineering, and in the business world, and work with the faculty on incorporating creativity into their lesson plans and working with the Drexel students. Melissa, I see you have a question.
Thanks, Dr. Kaiser. I just wanted to just follow up on this, the application and the process, and you started to head to answer my question. I echo everybody here that this is very much needed. Just an introduction, I actually work in the pre-K-12 system right now, and looking through a different lens of what's actually happening. I can tell you that there's a crumbling structure, and I was so relieved to hear the talk about the buildings that we're in and the structures that we face, because this is, in my opinion, like a core essence of this. We are so tied to the blind spot of the big buildings and of the schools and of the 8 to 4, and legally binded by a lot of legal things. And I'm looking at Dr. Little right now as far as the special education situation. And that is the only way to change that, is to get into the community, like you said, the businesses in the School of Entrepreneurship, but in particularly also health organizations, because they are, of course, at the center of this. And I've been reaching out and working with a lot of nurses as part of my concern on what's happening in the school systems. It's simply unsustainable, and it's unsustainable and crumbling faster, I think, than we have realized. And the pandemic, of course, has opened that. So on piggybacking on the idea of teachers, businesses, and entrepreneurship, but also bringing that health in, and to break down that structure. I've often said we have these huge buildings that are sitting empty all summer. They're sitting empty all evening. These buildings feel like prisons. I'm going back after 18 months of being out of those prisons, and I'm realizing I'm sitting in a classroom for 6 hours with no windows and no breaks. None of this is really, this is like, we're looking at a hierarchy of needs. That's structurally, Jeff, your comments resonated so much with me. But when you start to have those conversations with business leaders, it is a blowing their mind. So really bringing us all in together and having these kind of conversations, it's well beyond social and emotional learning. It's the drive of our humanity. So I'm really glad to see that combination. And I wanted to chime in for health and also the students' health as well. Teachers' health, students' health, our community health, working with those as well. Thank you.
Hey, Larry.
Craig, do you have a question? I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to something MaryJo was talking about, working with the museums, and just to make sure that I think that it's not just the art museums, it's the science museums, the Please Touch Museum, all of these. I think building strong relationships between the FRC and the whole museum structure in this area, and not just in this area, because once you do that, you're connecting to the Children's Museum in Boston, the one out, it would be an awesome way to help those people working in the museums with their education programs to deliver on their promise of creativity and exploration, but in a way that's based on research, which most of the time they probably are not doing right now. And so I think that becomes a very rich place for us to do the work that Freddie and is talking about, and Jeff.
Jeff, did you want to respond to Melissa because you're on mute?
Well, I was just wanted to say that I appreciate the holistic understanding that she's expressed with regard to the interconnection of the entire environment to nourish a whole being, including the physical space, as well as the emotional, psychological space we're creating. And let's not leave out the teachers at all. I very much hope that the work of the center will raise the need for more emotionally nourishing and intrinsically meaningful space for teachers to ply their craft. I think the teachers are, if your office is a prison, Melissa, you're the one who's staying there for as long as you choose. The kids get to go, right? So I really, a lot of people see the word unschooling and they think somehow I'm opposed to school or opposed to egalitarian education. I'm just opposed to putting a straitjacket on so many incredible people who really have wonderful judgment and creative strengths that are also repressed by a system that demands, march my way, do what I say, et cetera. And so I care almost as much or more about the teachers as I do about the young people, because we can't touch the hearts and lives of young people if we're not creating space for teachers to use their creativity and giving them the tools, because we're all products of a system that's fundamentally kind of anti-creative. So in any event, if anybody's questioning my own motives in terms of my involvement here, maybe that's a little bit helpful. I'm also deeply committed to advancing the purpose of equity for marginalized communities, and have been the primary funder of a new platform to help people take control of their own learning experience called Mosaic. You can find it at weareborntolearn.org. But it's all intended to hopefully lead a transformation of the way we educate in the mainstream of schooling, not intended to somehow undermine school. Thanks for letting me make a speech.
Along those lines, I'm sorry.
Hey, John.
I made a comment, but again, I'm very excited to hear about such a center focusing on creativity, especially as we talk about taking it into practice. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about how the translational is being defined. Is it simply the context? Because I've heard a lot about translational with regards to research, but what about professional development? Because one of the primary issues that I've seen and observed is that within our professional development, teacher training, and so on, they get the theory. However, when it comes to practice and to having models to follow and opportunities to perhaps have to intern their professional development by having that place or that space to practice. Does your center include such components, or is it strictly taking research and then trying to translate that into classroom practice? So I'd like to hear a little bit about how the two are being married in terms of the professional development that teachers get, the research that we do, and then what happens in the classroom.
I'm so glad that you brought that up, Joyce. That's a wonderful segue into our talking about our collaboration, the FRC collaboration with Penny's passport idea. The center will offer workshops, badges, certificates, non-credit, credit, when we help teachers identify skills and knowledge that they need. It's no wonder that teachers are not aware of their creative kids, because none of the teacher ed programs, including our own, focus on creativity or motivation. And it doesn't have to be a separate course. It needs to be sprinkled throughout everything we do. We need to model creative behavior. We need to be accepting of kids who think differently. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because that is in our toolbox. That's in our vision.
Thank you. Sounds great.
Thank you.
Well, my question was similar, or at least along the same lines. And Freddie or Jeff, I'd love to hear just example of a time where you've had this unstructured learning scenario in a context and what some of the outcomes were. I'd love to hear about that.
I'm not sure I understand the question, John.
I think I know what he's getting at. So full disclosure, John and I worked together for about 20 years at our former employer. And John is one of the few shining examples of someone who not only excelled in the most corporate of corporate roles in sales and sales leadership, but then, followed his bliss to academic superstardom here at Drexel University. But John, I'll give you an example. If it hadn't have been for Jim Patton, my mentor, helping us realize the value of creating a safe space for individuals to express divergent views and to have the opportunity for the group to explore the basis for their divergent viewpoint. Often at the 11th hour, 7 people committed to moving forward and one person going, what about, and next thing you know, everybody's like wants to, there's a reason I have no hair left, right? But it's like, okay, even, business people got to slow down. What do you mean by that, Jerry? And then next thing you know, Jerry's one idea that was divergent from the rest caused everyone to not necessarily agree with his idea, but to enter into a creative process, and up comes a new idea that no one even had believed was possible. All because the space encouraged the safety to say, hey, what about this? And I saw it virtually hundreds of times where a breakthrough idea, and these could be very mundane things. We're not talking about like sort of transforming the future of solar energy. We were talking corporate tax software, but still, you're dealing with people trying to solve a problem and meet a need others have that fuels part of the whole economy. And what you realize is that most of that creativity is crushed out of most business meetings because there's no even belief that it's possible. So, I've lived it. Freddie's read the research that proves it in young people and in teaching environments. So we've connected in believing that, if we can help others access the wisdom in the research, it will, because they hear me and they go, well, you just had a special situation. They don't realize that actually this has been replicated in the lab and that there are tools you can use to help purposefully create these environments, and that there's real payoff. And by the way, as you observed, John, right? People feel better when they know they're a part of an inherently creative process rather than just executing somebody else's, goals for them.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
How will your center be staffed? You talked about your very impressive advisory board, and kudos to that. I was really sitting here going, whoa. So how will you staff your center? Maybe I missed the part on your funding in terms of how this center will be supported. I guess I asked that question because I see sometimes so many great ideas in centers, things start, but they're not able to continue because of sustainability issues. So what is your plan for that in terms of staffing and sustainability?
Do you want me to open that, or do you want to open that, Freddie?
You open it.
Well, my wife and I try to give to transformational investments, so that, because often you need that sort of angel capital to get something off the ground. And so what we've done is provide enough support for at least a nucleus of staffing for a few years here. And then a part of our planning is to develop the development plan, including if we're going to be providing value added to corporations in terms of their training programs, they should pay for that, right? So there's a vision of building a self-sustaining model that isn't completely dependent upon certainly not a single donor. Now, this is my life's work. I'm in this for more than just the next 3 or 4 years, and I'm believing that the success we'll have will lead to sustained support and endowed support from Jennifer and I. But for us to achieve the scale of impact Freddie envisions, we're going to need to create a major self-sustaining element, and it'll deserve that because it'll have enormous impact that'll create a lot of value, and people will appreciate that.
And it is our hope, and we do have a PhD student assigned to work with us. We are putting ourselves as part of various grants, working through Penny's office and through the passport system, that we hope to receive funding for additional funding that will help support the center over the next few years and really turn it into a machine that creativity will come in, creativity will go out. It's a rich place for doctoral students to do research. I'm receiving some private emails from students saying, how can I be involved? I'd like to direct some of my research towards this, but they will be publishing on this, which we want this to not only be a national center, but a worldwide center. And so we expect to have doctoral students from other institutions being part of us, working with the Department of Education grants, NSF grants, private funding, and there's a whole lot going on for which we will be funding that, not only through Jeff's and Jennifer's generous contribution, but through these other initiatives, including the passport system.
Yeah, and I'd also like to say we just submitted as a partner a $50 million USAID grant that we embedded creativity into. And that would be a project over in Egypt that I'm currently involved with, but this would be a different project working with elementary school teachers and universities, 5 universities over in Egypt. And so we'll be bringing this to Egypt.
That's
If we
very,
can make this work really right, it should be an engine for identifying additional new areas for core research and generating funding for core research, because funders like ourselves, we love the idea that the research will have impact. And I think that with an impact arm for leading educational core research will enhance the funding base for that research as well. So that's Freddie and I, we have hours of recorded conversations about all the permutations of creating this as a bit of an engine.
Thank you.
You might say we
That more than answered my
months of
question.
recorded. You might say months of recorded conversations, developing our vision. I would like to also mention that one of our visions is to have centers such as ours develop all over the world, just as the medical translational centers are all over. We would like to have the FRC spout out centers, especially with our advisory board members who are at other universities and locations.
One of the real differences of translational research for our center is that in the medical model and through other research entities, when they do their research in bioengineering, it's translated into research for bioengineers. When it's done in organizational business, it's translated into applicable models for that, that area. We want to take the creativity research and put it in language that's accessible for all areas, not just for education, not just for organizational theory, not just for biomedical engineering, not just for psychology. And that's a real change in the way that translational research kind of works in the real world.
We want parents to understand the research.
May I jump in? This is Joy.
Sure.
I love the interdisciplinary nature of what you're describing, Freddie. And I just want to add my congratulations doesn't seem like the right word, but for you and Jeff, your extraordinary vision and your commitment and your action. I think to Melissa's earlier point, that with the schools being in a place of stress and crumbling, it does present a wonderful opportunity to go in with some new ideas. What I'm wondering is, at what stage of development is the center right now? I don't know where exactly you are, whether you're still sort of forming, developing, phase 1, phase 2. Thank you.
You all are at the very beginning.
And to be a little more concrete about that, our website should be up and running within the next month. We're in the midst of trying to plan for the first advisory board meeting. We are have plans of presenting and the center at an upcoming national teacher conference in Florida in February. We are coming close to finalizing the applications to be for our associate members, not only for teachers, but for students and other faculty members at Drexel who want to be part of this organization. But again, as Dr. R says, we're at that beginning. It all started out as a big wide circle, and it's narrowing in to the launch. We don't have the exact time frame for that launch yet, but we hope to do it before the end of the fall term.
Thank you. It's exciting to be in the know at the beginning.
Well, I thank Penny for allowing us to tell you about it early on, because, you know, we're all family, right?
Yeah, of course. And sometimes I feel like the mom of all of you.
You're way cooler than my mom.
Hey, Mom, can I borrow some money for
You
lunch?
are.
Sure, Craig, sure.
I kind of go back to what Larry and Dr. R were saying a little bit before. Like, there's no boundaries for this. Like, you have, like, the teachers also need support and people who understand this around them. The students need the home environment. They need the community. Like, this can help. I see possibility, like helping nonprofits and community. Like, there's no boundary to this. So it's very cool.
That's right.
With luck, we could influence policymakers to give design policy to allow teachers to have greater freedom of judgment and less being tied to specific curricular outcomes and more training and trust to be able to, work with young people, where they are and around where their curiosities lie. And of course, that's just the educators I know who have had that opportunity. They'll never go back to teach into a curriculum.
Jeff, I was going to say, Jeff, I think that is one of the most powerful things I've heard in a long time, that this FRC, through the work that you and Freddie are doing here, and all of us will support this, it can create the research that demonstrates the power of the vision that you guys are talking about. Everyone's scared to let these teachers off to have time to, in the system where I just came from, we had 14,000 teachers. None of them, and very few were given this sort of time and freedom in the classroom because there was a lack of trust. They didn't, for whatever reason, there's a fear going on. And I imagine, Jeff, you could speak to that, probably translates over into employees in a corporate environment as well, right? Same issues that I've seen. So not only were all the good work that you guys are talking about as far as lesson planning and translating the research into practice, but then the research on top of it that can convince the policymakers that would be just a landslide shift in how schools. I mean, I have daughters I have daughters in school right now that are, impacted by exactly what you're saying, and they notice it. Really powerful. Thank you for voicing it.
I
Craig,
love it. Go ahead.
I just want to point out that Craig rightly identified Freddie and her passion and her vision. But as this has unfolded over the past year plus that we've been building to this stage with the center, without Penny's constant support and without Larry, like doing all the doing that makes it all happen, plus being there, like always helping Freddie and I with everything, total team effort. And, so I just want to celebrate Larry and Penny too.
Larry and I are doers. We're doers. We just do.
Sorry, Joy.
That's okay. I was just going to say that I was really glad you brought up the policy perspective, because sort of tying back to what I was saying before, it's like we have a policy window open in policy speak, that we have a policy window, and it's a perfect opportunity for policy entrepreneurs to push forward new agendas. I think this is a fabulous example of that.
From a policy standpoint, one of the issues is standardized testing. And we have a group of students who are taking lead in trying to abolish standardized testing. And almost a month ago, I was asked to do a presentation on it. And in that presentation, I presented about 10 different modes that we can evaluate how students learn or what they have learned, not only through standardized testing, which is being supported by publishers making billions of dollars at the expense of teachers and students. And so that's just one area that we need to get right to the top. It has to come from Biden. And we're hoping that his wife, Jill, will be on board. But this standardized testing is the worst thing that ever was laid upon teachers and students. And so that's one initiative that we're kind of parallel with the FRC vision, that we're interested in doing.
Well said, Freddie. I call them dot tests. Can you place the right dot?
Right.
And Freddie, I was thinking the center could really be a leader in giving them options. Right. So they don't feel like they have to go to those standardized tests, that there's a range of options for them to achieve the goals they want to achieve, which I don't think anyone's been able to provide that or convince them there are options.
Well, and we have to convince the administration of the school districts that there are options.
I hear it from the doctoral students, their master's students, and the undergraduates who are preparing to become teachers in our creativity courses, that they're looking for alternative assessments. That standardized testing does not work. We kind of learned during COVID that isn't really necessary. Did the world fall apart because we weren't able to do the standardized tests for the children? I don't think it did. But again, we have to get to the, and I believe this is Jeff, and pardon me if I am misinterpreting your vision, but an individual education. We need an IEP for every student going into the classroom to individualize their learning. They're all coming from such different places, with different experiences, with different access of information, different parents, different home lives, that to put them into a classroom to teach them all the same rote, well, not made rote, but the same concepts of this is what education is, this is what they need to learn to move forward, is so antiquated. It's what does a kid want, what is a kid interested in, and what can we do to support each and every child to move forward on their individual pathway.
So Larry, I'm going to give you a corner of my soapbox, because I've been on that IEPs for everyone since I started in undergraduate school. So I'm with you on that. We never talked about that before. But I want to congratulate Freddie and Jeff on this wonderful center and opportunity for everyone, because I think that you've hit a core and a foundation of trust. And if we start from trust, which is so hard to do in any organization, in establishing mediations, for example, I want to make sure that everyone trusts one another, and they come in because they don't trust each other. They're in a conflict. If you can establish trust in the schools, if the administration can be trustworthy and the teachers feel it and the students feel their teachers are trustworthy, then I think we have an opportunity to have IEPs for everyone without actually having to scribe them out. So thank you for that opening, Larry.
Does your center have a laboratory component? And what does your labs, what will your laboratories look like or feel like?
Oh, we have wonderful space in the School of Ed, Larry. I'll let you take that.
Well, I'm not sure what you're envisioning as a lab. We have places that people can gather, and we have a place that people can gather in real life to meet and talk out things and try and develop ideas. And really, right now, we're envisioning either Drexel faculty working with students, working with teachers for that space. But we also need to be able to do it virtually, because we want to be able to include people who aren't able to come face to face, or who, time zones and can't travel, things of that sort. So all that will be kind of worked out, and it's going to kind of develop naturally as people want to get together and how they want to work together. But we have a space that's set up that has technology. We have a space that's set up that has is conducive for creative ideas to flourish and to meet and talk and just to kind of brainstorm together. That's
And
really where we are at the moment, Joyce.
I haven't seen it yet, because I'm kind of homebound at this point. But Larry, maybe you could talk about like the walls where people can write on the walls, a little bit more about the technology part of it.
Well, the technology is pretty standard. When we have the large screen, we have the video projector, we have the laptops, we have the computer system for people who need to use it. But we have space for people to sit and talk. And rather than, even though you can write on paper if you want, but we have the walls are made of the material that you can write on them. And rather than just kind of post-it notes, so it can be a little bit permanent, or it can be erased very readily and moved around. But we also, we'll have manipulatives and paper and post-it notes if you want to move things about. So just kind of just set up for creativity to happen. It's the things are just kind of lying there for people to use and become inspired. But first we have to identify the real problem that group wants to work on.
Kind of like a makerspace.
I like the way you're thinking.
It also sounds like an incubator.
Yeah.
I like the makerspace and incubator idea. That's great.
Again, I like the way you're thinking.
I like the way you're thinking. I got to get a recording of that, Larry.
That's an old Dr. R term from back in the diagnostic teaching day. When you're giving a test, the SAMI test, which was a case 6 assessment, the kids would always ask, how am I doing? Am I doing okay? Am I doing it? And the response would, I like the way you're thinking, or I like the way you're working, because you didn't want to give them a yes or no type of answer.
We have just a couple more minutes if there's a final question or thought from anyone.
Well, we do mean the invitation. We want this to be certainly a School of Ed initiative, but it also is a university-wide initiative. And we welcome activities involving the entire university. Because one of Jeff's visions is that the center, although housed in the School of Education, thank you, Jeff, that was a real wonderful way to bring visibility to our school. But Jeff, he also wants us to be a university-wide initiative.
And be just a tad more concrete, those who want to participate, as they're kind of doing in the chat, which I'm saving, do email me directly, and I will be working with our doctoral student to get information out about the processes that we're developing for you to participate.
Freddie, thank you so much. 25 years ago, when I was first introduced to you, all I expected was to be told, go away with your crazy ideas and this crazy stuff. And Freddie said, Jeff, I hear you. And I was like, oh my gosh, somebody in mainstream education who's like open-minded and pardon me, all of you, but I didn't know anybody at that point. And if we could have known then that your idea, your vision would attract such a wonderful group of passionate collaborators, I wouldn't have believed it. I wouldn't have believed it. So this call itself is a dream, is a vision realized, a dream come true, and a sign that the time has come to finally innovate to a higher order way of being together and learning together in our world. And I'm just so grateful for everyone who took the time to share this space with us today. What a great gift to take your time to do it. And I appreciate your ideas, and thank you so much.
Jeff, I probably said this to you before, but welcome to the family. You're part of us now. Yep. Hugs, hugs, hugs. I want to thank Freddie and Jeff today for really presenting an innovative, necessary center on creativity and motivation, translational research. It's really needed. We're very honored to have it housed in the School of Education, but it's open university-wide and worldwide, right? And so I'm just looking forward to all the great and wonderful things the center will do, and we will follow your vision, both of you. And as you know, I said earlier, Larry and I, we're doers. We'll just point us in the direction we'll do. But thank you so much. As I said, this is being recorded. It will live on our website. Thank you so much. This was an honor to have you kick off the Dean's Lecture Series this year, and just so exciting to see what's going to happen over the next 3 to 5 years with this center. It's going to be amazing. I just know it. So thank you. Let's give them a round of applause. Bye, everyone. I'll see you in another Zoom meeting at some point.
All right. See you guys.
Bye.